My gynecologist told me that I was wasting his time when I asked for a diagnostic laparoscopy for potential endometriosis, only to find out that I then had stage 4 endometriosis. I'm going to take you through my diagnosis journey from symptoms at 16 years old all the way to getting my stage 4 endometriosis diagnosis, so you can see everything that was involved, everything that I had to do, and all the trials and tribulations that so many women face right now, today, when they're going through their own diagnosis journey. Hi, I'm Alex. I've lived with endometriosis and adenomyosis for over 10 years now. I now work in the women's health space as an advocate, speaker, and podcaster to make sure that we are calling out the medical misogyny and gaslighting that women are facing every single day in our healthcare system. So my journey begins when I was 16 years old. On my 16th birthday, you literally couldn't have picked worse timing. I was at school and literally out of nowhere, my period just started, but it wasn't like a little bit of blood. It was like flooding. And I remember asking to go to the toilet, and I went to the girls' toilet and I sat in there and I was just totally and utterly unprepared. Like, I had some stuff with me, but those like really thin panty liners. I didn't have any tampons with me. I had no idea how to use them, but my mum had just said, like, put these like liners in your bag just in case for when something happens. And I remember thinking, this is not going to do anything. My underwear was like completely drenched in blood. It was really heavy. I was already having clots that were passing. That was really scary, and that felt really uncomfortable. And like looking in the toilet thinking, like, what the hell is that? And I remember just praying to get to the end of school. My mum picked me up. I remember telling her that I'd like, come on. I cried, like got really emotional. I was like, it's awful. The pain is horrific. I can't move. I'm in agony. I feel really sick. I feel really dizzy. I feel like I'm going to pass out any minute. And I remember her just being like, okay, like, we're going to fix this. Like, don't panic. It's going to be okay. We'll get the stuff. We'll work it out. And we had to get like the heaviest pads you could possibly get, like nighttime pads, but also for super heavy flow. And it was like wearing a nappy. And that night, because it was my 16th birthday, I was having some friends round. I had just got my first ever teenage boyfriend, and he was going to be there. And it just felt like my period was ruining everything, because I was like, oh my God, like, can anyone see it under my dress? Is it really obvious? I felt awful because I was losing so much blood. And I can safely say that every single period that followed that for years was that horrific. Like, every month I was bleeding for a minimum of 7 days, and they were so heavy every single day. Like, there was no let up, no break, nothing. It was just incredibly intense for 7 days. Probably between 7 and 10 days was my normal for a long time. Incredibly heavy, using a lot of products, using painkillers like every 4 hours. My mum introduced me to Feminax because like paracetamol, ibuprofen just weren't touching the sides. Like, nothing was working. Hot water bottles came in. I found like heat really helped me, so I started to use them. And we just were trying to like throw the kitchen sink at managing the pain, the blood flow, everything. I got used to almost having like half a life during my period. But at that point, I didn't know anything about my cycle, didn't know my 4 phases, didn't really know anything about ovulation, didn't really understand the menstruation phase, what was normal, what wasn't. Like, my education was completely non-existent, like completely non-existent. And I remember like talking to my mum when I was kind of had a few periods, and I just remember her sitting down with me and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, because like mother like daughter, like I had heavy periods, I had a bit of pain with it, I had to like take Feminax, like clearly you just got that from me, so like I'm so sorry that I've passed this on to you. And I remember thinking like, yeah, okay, like mother like daughter, like genes were really similar, we look really alike, personalities are really alike, like we're literally like doppelgangers. And I remember being like, well, it's just the way it is. Like, she had it bad, I'm going to have it bad, kind of going to have to get on with it. I think it must have been when I was around like 17, 18 years old. So I was about to go to university. I did have my first boyfriend, and that's when like the contraceptive pill came in for the first time. And actually, I didn't go and get the contraceptive pill to manage my periods. Like, that wasn't the start kind of my journey of like, this is really bad, I need to go see the doctor and I need to go like get something to help it. I hadn't really made the connection between having horrific periods and even going to the doctor. Like, I just hadn't thought about doing that at all, which now feels insane because I'm such a big advocate for that, and it's what I tell people to do all day, every day. But for me at 16, 17, I just hadn't thought about it, and my mum hadn't thought about it, because it was like, well, she had it bad, I had it bad, it's just the way it is. But I went to get the contraceptive pill because I was in a relationship and we were starting to kind of explore that part of our relationship. I was going to uni. I wanted to make sure that I was like safe. And obviously at that age, the only thing anyone tells you is like, oh my God, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. Like, it's the worst thing on the planet. It's the worst thing ever. Like, please just make sure you protect yourself. And that was all I was thinking about. I just don't want to get pregnant. That would be like worst case scenario. So I went on the contraceptive pill. It was the combined pill, the normal one that they dish out. And actually, when I first started taking it, I didn't notice any side effects or any negatives. I just did it. Now, there were definitely side effects, but I just didn't recognise them. I didn't really acknowledge them. I wasn't really at a stage where I was paying a huge amount of attention to myself. I wasn't connected to my body. I just felt quite disconnected from everything, really, like you do when you're a teenager, because you're still figuring life out. And it wasn't until I went to uni that I had actually a really traumatic, very stressful, difficult incident happen not that long into uni, that I think that then flared my endo. So there's a lot of research between like endo and trauma and emotional stress and things that happen in childhood, because literally only a few weeks after that incident, I started to have the most horrific pain every single day. And that was completely new for me. Like, I'd kind of told myself and got used to the fact that my periods were just going to be excruciatingly painful, incredibly heavy, feel like they lasted forever, like nearly 2 weeks, and that's just how it was for me. But when I started to get pain every single day, and this pain was like, it was like taking my insides and like squeezing a towel and like crunching and squeezing and like stabbing. It was just every possible pain you could imagine was going on like in my abdomen, like pelvic area, abdomen, tummy, like it was so painful. And then that pain would be so extreme that it would almost start to radiate to like the rest of my body, like into my arms, my joints, my legs, my back, like everything would start to hurt, but it always started from like that abdominal area. And this pain, I literally just remember waking up one morning in halls in my tiny little bed that they give you, and I just remember being like, oh my God, like I can't move, like I can't move, I feel like I can't breathe, I can't get to the toilet, I can't shower, I can't eat, like what the hell is going on? And I'd always had like this first aid kit that my mum created. It was like this huge box of everything I could possibly need. And I'm so grateful that I had that, because I literally went into this first aid kit and I was like, I need every possible painkiller that I can get my hands on. And I started to take 2 paracetamol and 2 ibuprofen every single day, every 4 hours. And I genuinely can't believe that I didn't create a hole in my stomach, to be honest. I mean, that definitely would have caused some damage, and that's something I've had to repair and really focus on over the past couple of years, because my level of painkiller use was so high because I just didn't know what else to do. But that was every single day for me. So like it started in like beginning of November and went all the way until I went home for Christmas. All those drugs, really unhealthy lifestyle, first year of uni, you're having fun, you're partying, like I was not helping myself at all, not sleeping very well, high stress in lots of ways, because I was like, something's really wrong, but I'm really terrified. I don't want to tell anyone about it. I don't want to talk about it. I can't face it right now. Like I knew something was fundamentally wrong, but I just couldn't bring myself to kind of enter that world of what is it? What do I need to explore? So I remember going home for Christmas and my mum literally took one look at me. Like I must have looked awful, like completely white as a sheet, no colour in my face, massive bags because I wasn't sleeping properly. And I think she just had that motherly instinct that something was really wrong. So I went home and I caught up with them, and then it all kind of came out about how much pain I'm in. And I think I had a flare up at home pretty quickly. And then my mum was like, oh, is this like a one-off? And then it all kind of came out. Anyway, she took me to the GP. She was like, we are going to the doctors. This is not normal. We're going to go and speak to someone. And I lost count of the amount of GP appointments I had, like most people do. And I'd say 90% of the GPs that I saw were male. Now, I don't actually have an issue with male GPs in terms of telling them anything, being examined, anything like that. Like male, female GPs, it doesn't matter to me. It's clinical. They're there to do a job. But what was really interesting was because it was mainly men that I was speaking to, it was so clear that they just were not interested in a young 18-year-old girl coming about really bad pain and heavy bleeding in periods. And actually when we first went, I didn't tell them anything about my periods because I hadn't connected the two things. We just went about the fact that I was in horrific abdominal crunching, twisting, stabbing pain every single day, to the point where I had to take enormous amounts of painkillers. That's all we went with. No symptom tracking, no cycle tracking, like just the pain. And they ran all the tests as they do, and they were like, oh, you haven't got diabetes, you're really healthy, you're not overweight, you're really healthy, your BMI looks fantastic, like all the standard stuff. And I was like, okay, great, but I'm not actually here thinking that I've got like diabetes or I'm overweight. Like, I know I'm not. I'm here because I'm in so much pain that I literally can't function, and that's not right. Like, that's just come out of nowhere. There's got to be a reason for that. And they weren't interested. Like, they did all the tests, and then every single time they were like, well, we've done the tests and the tests are fine, so what do you want me to do? Like, you're fine, you're healthy. And that is one of the most frustrating things. And I know that happens every single day, and every time I talk to a woman, she always says a very similar story of like, well, they literally explore the kind of basic fundamental tests, and because there's nothing there, they just go, well, you're healthy because that's what the tests are saying. But actually they completely ignored the fact that I was in horrific, chronic, debilitating pain. And thank God my mum was there, because if I'd gone by myself, I would have dropped it. Like, there's no way I would have kept on going. I would have just been like, okay, yeah, doctor said I'm fine. Like, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to have to get on with it. But she was the one that was like, we are not dropping this. We are not leaving this alone. Like, we have to keep going. And she literally just made me go back every single week until and tried like all the different GPs. And she was basically just going to make us keep going until we found someone that gave us a different answer, basically, and actually told us like, would they'd look into other avenues. And we got this appointment, and there was a locum GP, a female GP, who wasn't part of the surgery. She was just covering for sickness or some other reason. And I wish that I had her name so I could like say thank you, because honestly, she changed my life forever. But we went in, told her about everything that was going on. She looked at all my notes, saw the tests had come back completely normal. And then she started to ask me about my cycle and what my periods were like. And then I told her. And then the appointment kind of went from chatting, and she very quickly was like, look, I know you're 18, this is not something you've done before, and I know it's not something you probably want to do, but I really want to examine you. Like, has anyone talked about that? And I was like, no, I've got no idea what you're talking about. And she basically had to do for me the equivalent of a smear test or like a cervical screening test. But at that age, obviously, you don't normally have them done. So I went and had that examination. My mum like stood with me, held my hand, and it was really, really painful, like excruciatingly painful. She was lovely, but it was really, really tricky and really upsetting. And I think seeing me like in so much pain and so kind of upset, she then was like, right, I've taken a swab and I'm going to get the cells looked at, but I also think we need to scan and have a look inside. So that's when I got my first scan, which was an ultrasound scan. Now, this one was a external ultrasound, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I'd had an internal one at this point, which is literally like when you're pregnant, they put the jelly like on your belly and they just like scan around and have a look and see what they can see. This is very much like a tick box exercise. Like, ultrasounds miss so many things. They are not the most reliable scan, but it is literally the scan that they will always go to first, and it's just like a stepping stone to get into the rest of the investigation. And she basically said to me like, your scan is completely clear, like completely normal, can't see anything there at all, except for this one tiny thing that I'm not sure about. There is something called the pouch of Douglas in this scan, and there is a tiny amount of liquid sat in your pouch of Douglas, but there shouldn't be any liquid there at all. So she's like, I'm in a bit of a debate. Like, this is borderline whether I even refer you or not. Like, there's nothing massive coming up on your scan. And that is such like a pivotal point, I think, in my story of like, if she had been someone else, if she'd been in a different mood or had a different approach, she might have just said, I'm not sending you, there's not enough there. Like, we don't think that's an avenue, like gynae isn't something we need to explore. But thank God that she did, because I think she just had an instinct about me and about what I was experiencing. So she said like, yeah, gonna give you a referral to gynecology. And obviously my mum was there, and she was like, we can do this NHS or we can do this privately. And I'm aware that I'm in an incredibly privileged position to be able to say that my parents could choose between NHS and private. And I know so many people do not have that choice, and I'm very aware of how lucky I am. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not embarrassed about using private healthcare, because my parents worked and created a life for me and my family that meant that that was an option for us, and that was really important to them as parents, building a family unit and what they wanted to do and what their priorities were about making sure that we were in the financial position to be able to do that if we wanted to. So we went private because I was in so much pain still. I was really struggling. I wasn't able to go back to uni yet, and this was causing like a lot of issues, and I think my mum saw that I couldn't wait. Like, I couldn't wait any longer to try and get some help because it was so bad. So I went to the gynecologist, and my mum came with me, but I actually said to her, can you wait in the waiting room, because I actually want to do this myself. Like, I feel like I can handle this one. Like, I want to go in, do it myself, and then if I need you, like, I'll call you and you can come in and sit with me. And she was like, yeah, that's totally fine, I'll be here, you know, go do you. So I went in, it was this male gynecologist, and he basically made me go through all my notes, all the scans, all the tests that had already been done. We talked through everything, talked about my symptoms. We did talk a lot more about menstrual health, cycles, things like that. Again, I wasn't tracking, I wasn't doing symptoms. I had a lot of information about what was happening, but I hadn't done any like tracking or kind of connecting the dots to different points in my cycle. But there was a lot of things going wrong and a lot of things I was really struggling with. A long list of symptoms, and he basically said like, okay, I'm going to basically give you a different variation of the contraceptive pill, and I want you to take it for 3 months and then come back and tell me whether your symptoms have improved or not. And this is the first time that I ever heard the word endometriosis, and he literally said to me, I think it could be endometriosis, so take this pill, do it for 3 months, come back. And that was it. End of the session, end of the appointment, out the door, see you later. So there was no explanation, discussion, definition of what endometriosis was. I literally heard the word, got given the prescription, and then I was out the door, and that was it. So obviously, the first thing that I did was I got in the car on my phone and I googled endometriosis, and it was really, really upsetting. And I remember getting in the car with my mum, and we went into town because I was getting really upset really quickly. It was a lot to take in. And we went to a coffee shop, and we sat in the coffee shop, and we both just sat on our phones and read about endometriosis and what it could be. And as I was reading it, I was getting more and more upset, because I think I was looking at the list of symptoms thinking, oh my God, like, this is exactly what I'm experiencing. This is exactly what's happening to me. And my mum was reading it, and I think she was having the same thought process. And I just remember that day really clearly, because we both just sat in that coffee shop and there were tears in both of our eyes, and I was getting visibly upset. I think she was trying to hold it together a bit for me. And I just remember feeling really scared and really worried of like, okay, I feel like we're getting closer to getting answers, but in some ways that's really terrifying, because I don't want this thing, I don't want endometriosis to be the answer of what it is that's going on with me, because this sounds horrific, and it also sounds like a life sentence. Like, the information online wasn't great. It was the NHS website that I looked at. It's factual but very unemotional, very inhumane. Like, it wasn't easy information to take in and really kind of let sink in. And that's the other thing, like, when I was sat in this coffee shop reading this list of things, there's a lot of symptoms that I hadn't in my head gone, oh, this is a symptom, this is something that I'm suffering with, this is like something that shouldn't be happening. I just thought it was just part of what I had to get on with. And it was like that realization that actually these are symptoms of potentially a condition, and they aren't normal, they aren't things that you should be putting up with. And there were so many of them. The first one that really stood out that was really hard to understand was painful sex and painful intercourse. Because ever since my first boyfriend, and he was so respectful, so loving, like, it was a really safe environment to take that next stage with. But ever since the first time, it had always been painful, like always. Like, I'd say it started off like with discomfort, and sometimes like, oh, like, I'm not sure if that feels great or if that's not completely comfortable, but I can kind of ignore it and get on with it. And then it had like progressed as I'd got older into uni with different partners and things. And there were times when it was like, oh my God, this is excruciatingly painful. Like, what is going on? Like, this is turned from what should be a real positive into like a complete negative. This is just like not okay. The pain was like excruciatingly painful when it was like stabbing and all sorts, just really not very pleasant at all. But I just said to myself that because I'm 5'1", I'm really petite, I'm really tiny, that actually that's just potentially something that I have to deal with because of how small I am, and that's just part of me and my body and my kind of shape and size. Which I know now you say it out loud, it's like, obviously that's not the reason, that's not a thing, that's ridiculous. But at the time, no one talks to you about it. I hadn't had good sex education, school was woeful and useless. And you kind of make up reasons and make sense of things in your own head by yourself from what you know in your experience. Other ones included really like personal, intimate things like bloating. Like, I was constantly just like bloated. I just always looked like a little bit pregnant, and bloating would just happen really randomly, and there was just like loads of water retention on me. Bowel and bladder movements can be really painful, and I had experienced this. All that pain would happen like just before, during, afterwards. But again, like, who are you going to sit down as an 18-year-old girl and be like, hi, by the way, like, my bowel and bladder movements are really painful and like really worrying, and sometimes there's constipation and sometimes there's diarrhea, and then nothing's regular or normal. Like, you're not going to sit down and talk to anyone about that, because we don't think that's an okay thing to do. So anyway, I went and I did this medication, this new contraceptive pill, but I only got about 3 weeks, maybe a month in, because it was horrific. Like, I'm not even kidding. My reaction to this pill was so bad. Like, I took it and within a week, my face completely blew up, like acne, congestion, my face just went awful, like really bad scarring, thought it would never kind of recover. It always looked like that. My mood was horrendous. Like, I felt like I was losing my mind. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. Like, sometimes I would be fine and then I'd be like so angry, I'd want to scream, I'd be angry at everyone, I'd be like crying about literally nothing, completely randomly. And the worst thing was that I became really paranoid, like really paranoid. Like, I went from thinking that I was like friends with people and really comfortable around them to being obsessed that people were talking about me behind my back and people were looking at me weirdly, and then taking things the wrong way and being incredibly sensitive and emotional to different situations. And I took it for a few weeks and I told my mum like how I was feeling and what was going on at uni and things. And she was like, you do realise that you've only been saying this stuff to me since you've taken this new medication. Like, do you think there's a link? And I was like, oh God, yeah, okay, actually that's totally true. So she just said to me, look, just come off it for like a week and just see if anything changes, and then you know. And literally, it took me only a matter of days to come off this medication, and all those symptoms just started to disappear. And it was like, oh, I've actually come back to me again. I like came back to my normal me, and I felt like I'd returned back into my body after having like an out of body experience. And I was like, okay, it is definitely the medication that has done that to me. I'm not touching with the barge pole, like, not happening. I've got no interest in doing that. So I went back to the gynecologist and I said, these are the side effects, this is what happened, I'm not doing it, I'm not having this, it didn't make anything better. And he then turned around to me and said, okay, well, if the medication isn't helping you, it's not endometriosis. Now, I had done a lot of research in the time between seeing him last time and the next appointment. And from what I had researched about endometriosis, I'd found out that the only way to fundamentally, like completely and utterly, like 100% sure, diagnose endometriosis was a diagnostic laparoscopy, which is where they make an incision in your abdomen, they put like a tiny camera in and they go and have a look around and they take photos and videos and stuff. And I can't tell you exactly what it was that made me do this, but I think it was a combination of like struggling for such a long amount of time, having an awful quality of life, feeling really scared, feeling really angry about what I was experiencing, that all of that like came together. And I just said like, well, hold on, I've done a bit of research. I thought the only way to categorically know whether endo is there or not is through surgery. And I remember him kind of like sitting there. I mean, bearing in mind, this guy had like 30, 40 years in his career. Like, he was an experienced gynecologist. Like, he'd been around for a long time. And he kind of sat there and looked at me like, did she really just say that? Like, is she really challenging me? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, look, I'm not an expert. I don't really know a huge amount. But last time we met, you said endometriosis as a possibility. I've obviously gone away and researched it and Googled it. And from what my research and Googling says on the NHS website and other like reputable websites, you have to do a diagnostic laparoscopy to like actually diagnose it and be completely sure, or like other scans. And he was like, well, yeah, I suppose that's technically true. And started to get like quite defensive, quite like a little bit of aggressive, like in his approach, and like started to really get his back up. I felt guilty almost for just asking the question. Like, I felt like I'd done something wrong by even like daring to challenge or ask a question about his approach or what he was doing. Do you think it's endometriosis? Like, you clearly gave me this medication and you mentioned it last time. Does that mean you do think I have it? Like, is that what my symptoms are showing you? Like, what do you think? And he said like, yeah, that was a suspicion. That's why I gave you the medication. But I'm telling you, that medication hasn't worked, so you can't have it. Like, we need to move on, we'll look at other things, like, it's not endometriosis. And was like really trying to rush me away from like this like possibility that it could be endo. And I think his whole like attitude and behaviour towards me started to like really touch a nerve, and I found myself get really angry. So I then said, well, if I request surgery, can I have it? Because this is private, I am paying for this. Like, if I want you to go in and have a look around and tell me absolutely for sure what is going on, can I request that? And he didn't like that at all. Like, he really didn't like me asking that. And he turned around to me and he said, well, yes, you can, but you'll be wasting your time and you'll be wasting my time. Like, spat the words at me and was like really like aggressive and kind of like looking down at me. And just like his whole demeanour was like, you're like a silly little girl. Like, what do you know? Like, what a stupid thing to ask. And it just really pissed me off. Like, it really pissed me off. I got really angry and I just thought, like, you have absolutely no idea what I'm going through. Like, you have no idea what it's like to experience this. Like, you don't get it. Like, I'm not asking because surgery's fun and it's like a day out and it's like, woo, yay, surgery, can't wait. Like, I am at my absolute wit's end and I cannot live with this daily pain any longer. And you're telling me it could be this condition, but then because one medication hasn't worked, which also isn't the official way to diagnose it, you want to move on and you just want to ignore that possibility. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I then said, yeah, you know what, I do. I'm requesting a diagnostic laparoscopy. Go in, have a look. That's what I want. So I went in for my surgery. It was going to be like a minor procedure, not take a huge amount of time. My mum like dropped me off and stayed with me. And then when I went in, she went back home because we only lived like 10 minutes away from the hospital. And she was like, when you wake up, make sure you call me and I'll come and we'll get the results together and then we'll kind of take it from there. So went in, had the surgery, came out, was in recovery and then quite quickly came back to my room. And obviously I woke up and I had never been on those heavy kind of painkillers before. So I woke up and I was like, whoa, okay, I feel a bit spaced out. I feel quite good. You kind of feel a bit like, you feel alert and awake, but you also feel really spaced out and kind of sleepy at the same time. It's a really bizarre feeling. But I was very aware of what was going on. And I managed to like find my phone. I remember like texting my mum, I'm out, please come now. Like, I want you to be here. And she was like, yep, leaving now, no problem. And then a few minutes went by and then the gynecologist came in and he didn't come in alone. He came in with like an entourage of like young people. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, why are there so many people coming in? I need to give you the results. And actually, this is a group of medical students that are shadowing me, or junior doctors, one of the two, because they want to learn from myself and they need to be in this room to observe. Do we have your consent for that? And I was so out of it and it was such a shock. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. But then I asked him just to wait for my mum to arrive because like I'd had a message to be like, I'm in traffic, please just ask them to wait. I'll be like 10 more minutes, I won't be very long. And he just completely like ignored it. He was like, no, I haven't got time for that. Like, I need to give you the results and just tell you. So that's what we're going to do. And the way that he gave this news was completely heartless. It was cold. There was no bedside manner. It was harsh. It felt cruel the way that he did it. So he literally picked up his clipboard and he was like, right, Mrs. Morris. So we found stage 4 endometriosis. It's all over your bowel, your bladder, you're all over the back of your womb. One of your ovaries is stuck to your womb and all these different things. And it was like, it was like drowning. It was like getting hit by a tsunami and you are just desperately trying to like catch your breath and get to the surface, but you just can't. And I just felt like I was drowning. And it was like everything else in the room just slowed down. It was like everything went into slow-mo. It's like when you're underwater, you know, you can hear someone talking, but like their mouth is like moving in slow motion and weird things happening with your hearing. Like everything just like went really bizarre. And I kind of started to zone out and he then was telling me more details, but I wasn't hearing it because all I heard was stage 4 endometriosis and then all these different things of it being on all these different places and all these things being stuck together. Then I also started to feel anger. I was like, you told me that there's no way I could have endometriosis and you're now telling me that I've got some of the most aggressive, severe endo that you have ever seen in your entire career of stage 4, and you were going to ignore me, belittle me and just walk past that potential diagnosis stream and just look at something else because you were so convinced that after one medication it wasn't that, even though that's completely factually inaccurate. And this anger just came up in me. And as he was talking, when I was like zoned out, I remember just like interrupting and being like, so you were wrong. Now, I never normally would have done that, but I think the morphine and the drugs were probably contributing to probably my lack of patience and the way that he just delivered that really important news. And he kind of looked at me and I could see the medical students all kind of in the background being like, oh shit, drama is about to hit the fan. And everything went quite awkward and quite quiet. And I said, so I'd like an apology. Like, I'd like an apology for you to recognise like what you did. Like, that's not fair. Like, the way you treated me wasn't okay. And he did apologise, but it was like an empty lack of sentiment, didn't really mean it, just going to do it because he felt embarrassed and he had like medical students watching him and it wasn't great for him to have this interaction with me. He then left and he was like, we're going to give you a referral to an endometriosis clinic. And I'm not even kidding, like 60 seconds later, my mum like literally came running through the door, and I told her what he'd told me, and we both just sat on that bed and just broke down and just cried. All the different emotions that you feel in that moment are completely overwhelming. There was relief, of course there was relief, because I was like, okay, I'm not going crazy. Like, there is this thing that's happening to me. I have got a condition, I've got a reason, I can understand why it's happening. Like, I'm not going crazy. There's that validation there, and that is really important. So there was relief, but there was also complete dread, and I also felt like my life was completely over, because from what I'd read about endometriosis, it was this condition. I had the absolute worst, most aggressive stage 4 version of it. So my life was over. I can't do all these things. What does it mean for my future? Am I going to be okay? Am I always going to be in pain? Like, so many questions that I didn't have answers to yet. So it was complete dread, so much fear and worry about what the hell do I do now? And then I think the one that is the hardest is I just felt like a complete and utter failure. Like, I thought I had failed as a woman. I felt less of a woman. I thought, like, can I even call myself a woman? Because the one part of me that makes me biologically female and a woman and you know, all of that identity doesn't work properly. Like, it's wrong. It's malfunctioning. It's broken. Like, it doesn't work, and it's gone really badly wrong. So what does that mean for me as a woman, as a girl? And that broke my heart. And it's taken a long time to really deal with that and to try and work with that and to love myself. And that is a whole other video, which I'm more than happy to talk about. But that is the first very early section of my diagnosis journey, from having symptoms when I was 16, having no idea what was going on, all the way to actually getting that official diagnosis. And I hope it helps to just hear that and hear someone talk about what they went through and how it looked for them. I'm aware that 10 years ago, it's very different. So much has changed. Unfortunately, so many things have got worse in lots of ways. My diagnosis journey, in the grand scheme of things, was a lot shorter than other people's, but I really hope that it helps to hear from. And what I'm going to be doing in future videos is talking all about what would I do differently if I was to get diagnosed now, how would I prepare for surgery, future surgeries, the future of my journey after that. So when I went into the specialist centre, what happened there, the decisions I've had to make, how I've changed my life, how it's affected my relationships, uni, my career. Like, I will literally talk about every single thing in my life to do with endometriosis and how it's had an impact on something, and any questions that you guys have, because this is all about helping you and trying to help other women on their journey, because it is such a difficult and complicated journey to go on. I also have a podcast called It's Not Just a Period, and it literally is what it says on the tin. We are talking about every possible gynae female health condition. We're getting people on with lived experience, expertise, and it is all about saying that we are healthcare's dirty little secret, but we're not going to be any longer. We are calling out the bullshit. We are talking about real women with real stories, and we are putting all of that into the spotlight. I've had some amazing guests on so far, and I've got so many more to come that I cannot wait to share with you. So please go check us out. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple and Spotify. Go and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe. It makes the world of difference, and it will really, really help it to get it out to other women. And just thank you so much for watching. Keep looking after you, and I will see you very, very soon.